All right, small changes and a very good game await, I hope. So first of all, I was running Inventor's Fair in this game. It doesn't come up and doesn't play a role. I actually think, having thought about it further, that what I'd rather have is a little bit more recursion. So I've actually swapped out the Inventor's Fair and made it Academy Ruins. Mainly the thing is, that I have enough ways to go get Winter Orb, but very few ways to recur it. As a matter of fact, at present, I only had Yawgmoth's Will. But with the addition of Academy Ruins, it allows me to do a couple different things. One is if Breya gets to be too high in cost, and it's very important that I replay Breya, then I can actually sack the Breya and let it go to the graveyard, and Academy ruins it back if that becomes an issue. The other thing, of course, is just that I can save Yawgmoth's Will for a more opportune moment and use Academy Ruins to uh, get my Winter Orb or, Shackles or Crucible or whatever back. Of course, Academy Ruins and Crucible is also just a sweet little deal, package deal. Now, I kind of want, it would be kind of nice to run, like, say, Mindslaver in this, but I think that's a little bit ambitious. I think my twist is just fine. I don't need to recur Mindslaver, but I like the idea of having the Academy Runes for the flexibility here. Now, the other thing that I learned after this game was that I almost certainly want to be running by force, possibly instead of Vandal Blast or in addition to, alongside. And I had done that way back in the past, but this was another game that brought it home for me. Really, the threat of artifacts is so high early on, and having by force, I think, is just such a good way to deal with. The thing about Vandal Blast is, well, by force, for 3 mana, I can take out a crypt and or a soul ring and a talisman, for example, and I can do that very quickly, very early in the game. Whereas with Vandal Blast, even if I only want to take out 2 things, I've got to wait for 5 mana no matter what. So this is a much better deal after you get to a certain point, or if the cards aren't targetable. But until that point, by force is better, other than turn one. So that's why you might like to play. Maybe I might like to play both. Vandal Blast for turn one and for turn 12 or whatever, and then by force for everything in between. So anyway, having said all that, let's jump into this game because this was crazy. Now hopefully trade is not what I'm trying to do, so hopefully it plays out correctly. I literally played this one game against Dr. Land Destruction. The ending is a little, I want to say, disappointing, but my goodness, was this game worth it. It's just an insane game. All right, so um, person's name is Dr. Land Destruction, and they're playing Maelstrom Wanderer. So I'm putting the two together and thinking that they're probably playing Land Destruction Wanderer, but we'll see how it turns out. So I lead off with, so with that in mind, I have a very strong start. Wayfarer looks really good against this opponent potentially. My opponent, unfortunately for me, has a much more insane start. So let's make sure we track what just happened here. Opponent went land, crypt, soul ring, Secura, fetch another land. Now, fortunately, they didn't wait till the end of my turn to fetch it, which means I get to use Wayfarer right away. I think that was a big screw up on their part, but and that's going to help me a lot. But at any rate, my opponent just slammed 6 mana into play on turn one in a Maelstrom Wanderer deck. This is terrifying. So on my turn, I use Wanderer, thanks to them psyching the Secura, to get an Ancient Tomb, which I can then use to play a Talisman of Dominance, and I have a Mystical Tutor available. Now, if I had by force in this deck rather than Vandal Blast, or in addition to Vandal Blast, either way, if I had it in this turn, I could go Mystical Tutor for by force and then immediately play the Strand using the Tomb, kill both of these lands, and just probably win the game right there because I'd set my opponent so far back. Uh, I'm confident that by force needs to be in here, but I don't have it in the deck this time, so things are going to get, they're going to go from bad to worse real fast, and watch how it happens. Opponent runs out a Crucible, which is terrible, replays the land, and then Blood Moons me. Okay, so looking at this board position, consider this is turn 2, okay, even though they have 3 mana because of the STE. This is turn 2. Look at this board position. My opponent has Maelstrom Wanderer as their commander. I mean, this is just insane. So what do you Mystical Tutor for here? Well, I realize, I'm going to give you a second to think about it, but I realize, and I'll walk you through my logic, that not going to be able to handle wanderer, wanderer, wanderer type of scenario. I'm going to have to let the wanderer smash me, and then I'm going to have to deluge him off the board. Fortunately, I've got the talisman that produces both blue and black, so that'll let me do that. I'm going to need a way to continuously get mana to get the only two islands in the deck, which means I'm going to need white mana. So I've got to figure out a way to do that. I may want to disenchant the Blood Moon, but if I clear the board of Wanderer and the Crypt and Soul Ring and Crucible are still running, then the opponent is going to be able to replay it, probably no problem, I would say. So what I really need to do is clear these artifacts off the board, then clear the Wanderer and whatever comes with it, and then try to deal with the Blood Moon. I need to do all that under the constraints of the moon. So for this, I'm going to have to tutor, and gosh, I wish I had Bifrost in here, but I'm going to have to tutor Vandal Blast instead, which means I cannot clear those artifacts now. If I could, pausing, if I could have cleared those artifacts right now, my opponent doesn't get to wander here, and I have all the time in the world to win this game. So what a difference of having Vandal Blast versus Bifrost here. Or if I'm going to run both, what a difference of not having Bifrost. All right, so what I end up doing is I tutor for Vandal Blast because it's the best I can do. And then I fabricate on my turn for a Mox Diamond, which allows me to throw away Flooded Strand and then use Weathered Wayfarer to get a basic island into play because I want to continue to hit my land drops as well. Now, I could have destroyed just one of my opponent's artifacts, but I realize that that would be foolhardy because even if I do that with a Crucible running, they're going to get their mana up anyway, and it's not going to get me anywhere. I need to kill them all. So I'm going to have to just now worry about whatever happens here. Opponent replays the land from the graveyard. I'm figuring they're going to wander. Hopefully they'll just hit mana sources because these decks are, that's the problem with Wander is that, a lot of times you have to run a ton of ramp and then you wander into even more ramp. Which would make the Vandal Blast a little bit nicer if they hit more artifact mana. The other thing is that, if they do hit creatures, while they get haste, 7 plus maybe a couple of big guys could hit me pretty hard. Maybe I lose half my life and then clear the board. So shouldn't be too bad, right? All right, so my opponent slams Wanderer and hits Agarath's. So they do hit one ramp spell like normal. Agarath's Marauders. So if a sorcerer control would deal damage, it deals double damage. Are you freaking kidding me? This draw is insane on my opponent's part. Like, how totally ridiculously insane. And not only did they hit this thing that's going to do insane, crazy amounts of damage to me, making it impossible for me to deluge, but on top of that, they also did hit ramp that's not artifact mana, which means that they're going to hit more land drops. They accelerated the land drops. So if I clear the board, Wanderer's coming down immediately afterwards. If I deluge, I'm dead. But I can't even deluge anyway because I'm about to take a ton of damage. So I am now down to 3. And the only thing I can do here is play and pray. So I get Breya down and I just have to hope that I just don't die right now. My opponent runs out of Gaia's Revenge and pushes. So I'm going to double block like this, sack and kill the 4/4 in the middle and pass the turn. Now on this turn, I top deck Mana Vault, which is extremely key because it allows me to Vandal Blast my opponent's board away and pass for the turn. And hopefully my opponent just doesn't kill me outright here. Remember, all of my opponent's creatures will have haste. So for my opponent's turn, they run out a... Oh, please don't bug. Come on, game, don't bug. This game was too good to bug out. I hate how I have to beg the replay to work, and it looks like we're not going to get a working replay. Oh my gosh, this sucks. Well, I'm so sorry, folks. It looks like Magic Online is going to screw us once again out of one of the most epic games ever. This is a constant problem with Magic, and it always seems to hit on the best possible games. So my opponent, if I can remember what happened here, my opponent runs out more... Wow. This is going to ruin a game. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. This is incredibly disappointing because this was probably one of the best games of Magic I've ever played, and well, we're not going to get to see it. Basically, I think my opponent runs out a creature that I can, who does enough damage that I don't die. I don't remember what happens. All right, so for those of you who are interested in why I don't make very many videos, this is the exact reason. Like, there isn't enough pressure on Wizards to fix this problem, apparently. And they completely, they instead of getting free advertising for their client, where they could actually have, people like me making videos and promoting the game, they've decided to, make a new client and try to promote that and just let this one die this horrible death that it's doing. Unfortunately, you can't play Commander on the new client, so I guess Commander players, well, we know what that says about how they feel about us. But at any rate, I apologize. This is I didn't review this one. I usually do, but I was so excited by how good this video was going to be that I just hoped it would work out. Bottom line, I'll do my best to recreate. I block. My opponent doesn't have. They don't have a creature here. I can't remember what they had. I think it was like some extra mana or something. Like they fetch for more lands or whatever. They swing in with both guys. I block. I activate Wayfarer. I get a second basic island. I use Talisman and Island, and I sack Breya and Mana Vault, and I gain 5 life to go to 8. Then on my turn, I deluge. I deluge away the board, and then on my opponent's turn, they make a play, put out a threat. No, I deluge away the board. Yeah, that's right. And I draw a mana drain, the only counterspell I'll draw the whole game. My opponent's turn, they run out Wanderer, and they wander into like Birds of Paradise Farseek or something like that. So I mana drain the Wanderer. And then on my turn, I use all that mana to play Breya. Now remember, there's a Blood Moon out, right? Um, uh, what was my opponent's play? Because at some point here, what my opponent ends up doing is they end up seeing that I'm at 3. That's right. They see that I'm low on life or whatever, and they use the 2 Beast Within. They play Beast Within on their Blood Moon, killing it and allowing them to then have a 3/3 attacker. And then they I think it was the same turn that they play the Wanderer. So somehow they get enough mana and they're able to make both plays. But I mana drain the Wanderer. And maybe that's one of the cards they flip because they end up playing Wanderer at least 2 more times this game. And then, so they end up with the 3/3, but then on my turn I play Breya off some of the mana from the Wanderer, but I actually have my colored mana back over here rather than just relying on artifacts. And I use it to play Breya, gain 5 life. I get like tons of mana floating, right? And then I sack, because I sack Breya and a flyer to gain 5 life, and then immediately replay Breya, and the only thing I have untapped is Ancient Tomb. So I played Breya 2 more times off the mana drain mana. And that leaves me with a Breya, 3 flyers, and I'm at, I think, 10-ish. And so my opponent runs out Wanderer again, hits I can't remember, something not super important. On my turn, I'm able to basically get a Winter Orb in play, and I end up getting a Winter Orb in play to lock their mana down, and I get a Doretti out. And I'm completely out of gas, but I'm like on the board holding the line, and I'm plussing Doretti up because I want fuel for Breya. So my opponent, and also because my opponent's attacking with Mails from Wanderer, and I keep chump blocking. And so on my opponent's turn, they get a Reclamation Sage, like just randomly find a Reclamation Sage to kill Winter Orb. So I sack the Orb and something, and I gain like 5 life. Or maybe I kill one of their flyers or something. And my opponent is continuously like replaying mana over and over, so that they're getting to a point where they can replay Maelstrom Wanderer, and they can play other threats. And of course their deck's packed with big threats. And so we end up, after it all shakes down, we end up with this board state where I've kind of stabilized. I have Breya. I've ticked Duretti up to 6. My winter orb is dead, but the game plan is I've actually been ticking Duretti up rather than killing any of their things. I'm leaving them with all of the mana that they have to replay Maelstrom Wanderer if I were to kill it, but I keep chumping it and doing nothing else. And the goal here is I'm going to ultimate Duretti, and I'm actually going to make 3 winter orbs. And then the plan from there is I'm going to start throwing. My opponent realizes the first time that I chump block, and I actually throw the creature as well as another one at my opponent's face, taking them from 16 to 13, because at this point they're at 16, I think, because with the Blood Moon gone, they sacked their Wooded Foothills. So they're at 16. I drop them to 13, and they realize that if I ultimate the ready, like I could either copy Breya and get enough flyers and then just kill them that way. I could copy like Talisman of Dominance to make sure I have the mana. So my opponent has to do something. And so what they end up doing is they end up playing this card that's 6 mana, and it says each player separates all their cards into 3 piles, and then the game will randomly select one of the 3 piles, and you will destroy everything in that pile. So my opponent plays this card. I can't do anything about it, and floats a bunch of mana. And I think about it, do I want to sack things in response? And I realize the only correct answer here is it's kind of a horrible decision. I hate cards like this, but there's a 1 in, if I separate all my cards into the same pile, then there's a 1 in 3 chance that that pile is selected, and a 2 in 3 chance that none of my cards are selected and I lose nothing. So I have to play that gamble. And my opponent, of course, knows this because they probably already figured it out since they're playing their card. They separate all their cards into one pile. So I separate all my cards into one pile, and then I don't know if the game selected their one pile for them to sacrifice everything they have in play and lose the game on the spot or not. Because before it came to my point where it could tell me what the results of the card were from my perspective, my opponent right-clicked and conceded. So I'm so sorry this video did not work out. It was the most insane game, but I actually managed to beat that insane Crypt Soul Ring Crucible Blood Moon draw with a Secura Tribe Elder, getting hit in the face for double damage off an Angrus Marauder's Maelstrom Wanderer for 22 points of damage, and surviving the entire game off of using a Talisman of Dominance for mana source at 3 and finding a way to still Toxic Deluge and clear the board, even though a Guy's Revenge Wanderer stuff is beating me down. And when I finally win, at one point when I did win over my opponent, I actually had him tapped down to 2 lands. They untap, draw, and the card they drew was the Reclamation Sage. So it was like if ever, it was like you could have wrote a script for my opponent to have everything go their way exactly perfectly, and the deck managed to win. And I was so proud of this game. So I'm going to put it up just because I think it's good enough, but I do want to get by force in this deck. I don't know that it replaces Vandal Blast. I think it might be a companion to Vandal Blast. I'm going to need a slot for that. And also, I really like the idea of running Academy Ruins instead of the other one. Instead of having another search card, having another recursion card. I have less recursion in here than I have search. I mean, I only have now 3 cards that allow me to recur. So I think that actually makes a lot more sense. And that is assuming we can support the colorless land. So tell me what you think. How do I get by force in here? Do you like hearing about these games secondhand like that, even when they're broken, or is this a waste of time to do these videos like that? I don't mind, if you thumb me down because you didn't enjoy this, you didn't get to see the game, but at the very least, definitely give me a thought on why, or if I see a lot of thumbs down, then I kind of, I'll read between the lines. But either way, I do appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. Hopefully next time I'll have a video for you that isn't broken. But yeah, this is the reason why you don't get a lot of videos, on top of the fact that my work schedule is intense. When I do try to make them, we get this. So thank you very much for watching anyway, and I'll see you next time.